Hello, my name is Kirioth, and this is part 2 of the Astra Militarum / Imperial Guard range review. And I think this is the 7th time I've tried to record this. I'm losing my mind. I'm actually losing my mind. I've had so many issues with this video. If you're listening to this, it's only because this one happened to work. I've lost audio repeatedly. I've had sections where it's just been completely corrupted and not been able to do anything with the video at all. It's destroyed all semblance of both sanity and the will to live. But we're trying it again. I'm not going to hold it against these models. I'm not going to hold it against them. I've already talked about them over and over again. But it's fine, because this time it is going to work. And you're going to listen to this and think, Jesus Christ, you're off your face. It's true, I can't deny it. So, we're going to start off where we left off, which is with the Baneblade and the Baneblade variants. So, you have your Baneblade, your Hellhammer, your Bane Sword, your Doomhammer, your Storm Sword, and your Stormlord. And I think that's it. No, there's also the Bane Hammer as well. There's quite a few of these. And you know what? They all look absolutely solid. I love this. This is, I think... Yeah, no, I'm going to say it. This is one of my absolute favourite tanks in 40k in general. It looks amazing. It is absurdly large, comically large. It's absolutely festooned with guns. You don't even have to, like... In the picture, okay, it shows a couple of sponsons, one on each side. You can have more than that. You can put more on. They don't give you enough to have more in the kit. You have to buy another sprue separately, which is a bit cheeky. But you can absolutely load this thing up. It just looks so good. It just looks so good. And it applies to absolutely all of them. All the different variants have really cool little things that just mark them out. The Hellhammer, I don't know why, but the Hellhammer looks super imposing. I think the shorter... I think it's the Demolisher, isn't it, on this one? No, the Demolisher cannon's on the bottom. I forget which... No, Nova Cannon on top, isn't it? It just... There's something about the shorter barrel that just makes it look super mean for some reason. The the various fixed gun ones, again, this is just, it's so excessive, it's so over the top, it's such an over the top vehicle, but it looks super heavy, it looks massively over armoured. It also, weirdly, compared to pretty much all the other Astra Militarum tanks, looks the most likely to be able to move, which is kind of a weird one, because you'd think something this absurdly big wouldn't go anywhere. But the difference between this and, say, the Lehman Russ is the armour on the Lehman Russ, like on the sides of the Lehman Russ, come all the way down to the ground, pretty much. It leaves very little of the tracks and the suspension exposed, which means that, effectively, it doesn't have any suspension. It wouldn't really be able to go anywhere, because it would just get stuck on things immediately. If you've got no suspension, if there's no clearance between the armour on the sides and the ground, I think it's safe to assume it's probably going to get beached pretty damn fast. The Baneblade and all of the variants have none of that issue. They actually look more functional somehow, despite the fact they are 4 times the size, just about. In fact, I'll if I remember, which I should do, I'll stick a little picture of a Lehman Russ next to my heavily modified Baneblade variant, which is run as a Baneblade in the game, but it's weird. It's a whole thing. It's called the Witch Hammer. There's a whole video about it. I'll link it in the description. But yeah, I absolutely love every single one of these. They are huge, lumbering war machines, absolutely covered in guns. There's a massive variety of loadouts, like whether you want to do shorter range, massive amounts of damage you can stick with. You know, the more kind of generalised, I would suggest, is just the Baneblade itself, because it's got the battle cannon, it's got the demolisher cannon, you've got 3 sets of heavy bolters, a few las cannons on there as well. It seems much more generalised in its role, but then you've got things that are just more focused. The fact there's a transport option in here, which I forget which tab it is, there we go. So the Stormlord has a transport capacity, and it's got a Vulcan Mega Bolter on the front. That's quality. That is awesome. I have to say, this one is actually my least favourite of all of them, just because I don't like the open top nature of it, but that's just because I prefer enclosed transport spaces, and just enclosed vehicles all round, to be honest. That's the only thing that kind of puts me off this one. But then again, it does also come with, like, heavy flamers, so swings and roundabouts. It's still good. It also, to me, is one of the weirder looking variants as well. The others all are very consistent in the way they look. The Stormlord, for some reason, looks very blunt at the front. I think it's just because the gun is not anywhere close to what any of the others look like. You've all got, like, sometimes shorter barrels, but there's like a distinct silhouette that just kind of varies slightly. The Stormlord has got, I think, the most different silhouette to all the others, despite being the same chassis. But yeah, I love all of these. I absolutely love them. Like, now that I've got my Baneblade done, my plan is to have a second one. Well, probably a Banesword. I think probably a Banesword I'm going to go for, because I want something massive with a giant, I think it's a volcano cannon on this. I want another super heavy. And then at some point, adding probably not the Macarius, the other one. I forgot what it's called. Malcador. That's it. No, it is the Macarius. The Macarius Vulcan is what I'm planning to add, so I can have a proper 3-tank super heavy detachment with, 2 Baneblade variants and then a Forge World thingy. I would have just these and nothing else if that was feasible. But it's not, and also the Lehman Russ is cool too. So I'll let maybe one of each of these, despite the fact you can magnetize them to have every loadout if you want. I would genuinely, had I the money and the time, I would happily just have one of each. I would love it. I would be so happy with that. Very unlikely to ever happen, but I would do it if I could. They're so good. They're so good. Oh, look at them. God, love it. Now, on to something at the other end of the scale in terms of size and armour. Imperial Guard Ratlings. I love these little fellas. I love these little lads. I really like the abhumans that are in the Imperial Guard. I like it a lot. It does a... I think one of the reasons I like it so much is that there's a fun amount of hypocrisy in there. The Imperium is all about destroying the heretic and the Xenos and the mutant, except for these mutants. These are fine. These abhumans, these mutants, we'll take these. They're useful to us, so we'll allow it. But anything else, no, get lost, get out. It shows a distinctly hypocritical side to the Imperium, that they allow Ratlings, but they are also strictly anti-mutant. It's the same thing with the Ogryns as well. I think these models have got a huge amount of personality. They're weird. I'd say they're unusual in that they have almost like... Well, they do have kind of almost a fantasy slant in some ways. Replace the guns with swords and you wouldn't need to do anything else, pretty much. But, yeah, they feel like a kind of holdover from a bygone era, but in a good way. They're definitely showing their age a little bit. The hands are a bit like... Well, I say a bit. They're massively... The scale is so far off. The feet don't really matter too much, because it's part of the whole, basically, Hobbits thing that they've got going on, but on some of them, the hands are, like, far bigger than their actual head, which looks really off. There's also an inconsistency to the size of the hands as well. I would suggest the guns look a little bit not massively well defined compared to modern sculpts as well, but they still just have so much personality. I really like them. Next up, we've got the Imperial Guard Regimental Advisors, and I don't think I've ever seen these in the wild. I don't think I've ever seen these show up on the tabletop. I've just not seen it. And yet, I really like these as well. There's so much character to them. There's so much character, and... Yeah, especially the guy with the fancy blue coat with the gold frogging and the medal, and that's a great model. That is a great model, and I'd suggest that that's aged pretty well as well. Like these are resin, I believe, resin or metal. Let's have a quick check. They're still metal. They're still metal. So yeah, an officer of the fleet, a master of ordnance, and astropath. So they're still metal. But I would suggest that I'd say all three of them all three of them have aged super well. The proportions don't feel off. Somehow the hands look more well proportioned than a lot of just the standard infantry models. The poses have got so much there's so much arrogance from the Astropath and the Master of the Fleet. There's just, they ooze this kind of I'm in charge here. I love it. So well done. And then we have the distinctly not I'm above you and better than you Ogryns, which are amazing models. They are genuinely amazing. There's so many cool little details on these. Just the fact that they're using tank tracks as armour is a massive plus to me straight off the bat. I really, really like that. There's also a nice bit of movement on a couple of them as well, which kind of show, despite the weight of the tank tracks, the kind of movement on the lead guy there is making them move slightly. I really like that. Little bullet holes and stuff in the front, in the shield, across some of the armour. There's just lots of nice little details. There's even, I don't know whether it's sculpted in because I've not put any of these together. I do have a box, which I should really do something with. There's a really nice little detail that looks like a weld pattern, like it's been repaired at some point. I don't know whether that has been painted or sculpted. If it was painted, then that's just a fantastic touch, and hats off to whoever painted these for the display pictures. But if it's sculpted, that's also pretty awesome. You've got a couple of different loadouts. You've got the shield and the gun, and then you've got the massive beat stick and the smaller shield. But yeah, the gas mask thing looks really, really cool. Makes them look almost robotic in the face, which I quite like. Yeah, I really, really like these. They're they're so chunky and imposing. And I will say, I think the mask does help a lot with how imposing they look. It takes a lot of the the humanity out of the face, the mutated humanity, but humanity nonetheless. It takes kind of expressions away from them and makes them look very cold and calculated. Just so good. Doubly so for the lad with the lenses as well. It just looks so mean, so mean. The Ogryns are just great sculpts. And then from the same kit, I believe, you've got I think it's from the same kit, isn't it? Yeah. You've got Nork Deddog. Now, okay, look. First things first. Why did they call him Nork? Why did they call him Nork? If someone's got a massive pair of Norks, you can. I mean, I hope I don't have to explain what that. Just that sentence alone should tell you what you need to know about what the word Norks means. Why they call him Nork Deddog, I don't know, but it's a decent. Yeah, they're decent models. They do look good. They're not, to me, they don't have quite the same imposing feel as the Ogryns. I feel like the extra armor the Ogryns get do a lot to kind of increase how imposing and threatening they look. They still look decent, and I think are they butcher cannons they've got? Something like that. But they do look decent, but for me, you just can't beat the imposing mass of the Ogryns, which of course is helped by the armour and the shields. I'm not sure whether people would be happy if you stuck the armour on these lads instead. I doubt most people would care, to be fair. If there was some way of doing a little bit of kit bashing and reposing to give them a bit of armour and those guns, that would be like the perfect solution for that personally. But yeah, they still look decent, and the amount of scarring on old Nork's face is massive. It's so bad. His entire face is just held together by nails and staples. Just not had a great time of it. The little Commissar hat on the skull as well is such a weird touch. I'm assuming there's a story behind that, but I don't know what it is. It's funny though, to be honest. Speaking of Commissar hats, we've got Severina Raine as well, which I still quite like. I quite liked her when she was released. I still quite like her now. I think it's a good sculpt for a Commissar. It's not got what does Macca call it? The hero rock or the scenic rock, or what is it? Something like that. Instead, got a bit of metal to stand on, which is a nice change. Yeah, I think it's a good Commissar model. There's some nice details in there. It's nicely sculpted. It's well done. They've got the like the scar on the side of the face there. You can just see. I like the sword a lot as well. The sword's nice. Good feel of movement from the cloak. The paint job on is quite good as well. I would have preferred the hair to be more visible, because I'm sure in the on the book cover, yeah, you can see a bit more of a hair than you can in the model, but that's I think a relatively small nitpick. I have to say, I also do just like the fact that there is a model for a female Commissar now. You can always kit bash your own, but the Imperial Guard is not male centric, and it's supposed to be the men and women of the Guard, and that is not reflected in the range at all. So whenever we get something that does reflect that in the range, a little part of me is like, well, maybe it would have been cooler if it had like a bigger name Commissar, perhaps. But then again, there is something to be said for having a little bit of something different. So yeah, do like that one. Do like that one. Oh, the Tech Priest Enginseer. Chunky! Absolute chunk. Pretty sure we've already covered this lad in the AdMech range review. But he's still solid. Look at the legs. Look at the legs. One of my favourite bits about this model, the legs. The lad has got massive piston-driven legs, and they look solid. Anything that looks like if it trod on your leg, it would break your leg, I like. And he would absolutely wreck you if he kicked you. Look at the size of him. Yeah, look at him. Look at him. Look at the girth. Look at the girth on the lad. Absolute legend. Quality. Not too bad a sprue either. Not too inefficient. It's actually alright. And next up we have the Prefectus Commissar, the Officio Prefectus Commissar. And I have to admit, I think the paint job on this one, it's not doing his face any favours. He looks older. He looks a bit... He's at least 80 there, right? Possibly older? Getting on in years, I think is maybe the way to put it. I think this model is fairly old at this point. I can't remember when this was released, but I think he looks alright. I think he looks okay. Nice little power pack, very subtle on the back there for the plasma pistol and the power sword. The power sword is not to my personal taste. It looks a bit weird. I don't really know why. It looks like it wants to be a cutlass. It gives me pirate vibes, and I don't know necessarily that that's what you're going for with a Commissar. The hat is solid. Excellent hat. Very... It's a massive hat, really. But I like it. Overall pretty decent. Yeah, that's got to be, what's that, 2013 on that sprue? So yeah, he's 8 years old. That might not even be when he first came out. If that was a Reebox, maybe. I can't remember whether they changed the names, whether they changed the dates on the sprues with Reeboxings, or whether they keep the original. But it's maybe a little bit spaced out. Also, including sprue reviews is getting a bit too far into it, isn't it? Speaking of Commissars, the absolute legend himself, Yarrick. Old model. Definitely an old model. Don't care. Absolutely solid. Solid model. Still looks good, I think. The face is maybe a little bit... It could be a little sharper, perhaps, but overall, this is one of those ones where if they ever redid it, they would have to just make the same model again, but more crisp. It is one of those iconic models. The massive orc power claw. How does he even have the strength to wield it? Is Yarrick. That's how he has the strength. So just shut your face. Don't even question it. Massive storm bolter in the other hand. Not augmented in any way, by the way. He's just holding that. I think I'll always have a soft spot for this guy anyway, because, I mean, the Codex Armageddon was so good. It was so good. I loved that book. Absolutely loved it. God, such a good model. Such a good model at such good times. And then we got the other legend, Castellan Creed, who he's very, very old now. He's so... it's a pretty kind of it's a pretty iconic model, but it's getting on a bit now. I don't know necessarily that Creed is supposed to have the face of a potato, but he definitely does here. Also, the paint job is not doing him any favours. The gun holsters are so light, and the end of the guns are gold, but it's not photographed very well. Like, the photo's fine, but it's an old picture. So if you look, like, if you compare that to some of the more recent pictures, so, let's see. No, not them. That. Like, if you look at that, and then look at Creed, in fact, we'll just do Sly Marbo. So if you look at Sly Marbo, and then you look at Creed is just more low res. More low res? Is that even... that's not even a proper... That's bad grammar, isn't it? But you get what I mean. The detail in the photo isn't as good. So even if the Mini was painted to the same standard as one of today's miniatures, then it wouldn't show up as well because the picture just is not of the same quality. This was a much older model, painted in an older style, taken... like the picture taken with a much older camera, and it all combines to make it look really, really dated now. Really dated. Especially compared to Sly Marbo. Sly Marbo, obviously a legend. Total legend. Looks quality. It's so good. Oh dear. It's very over the top. The heroic pose of the foot on the head of the obviously decapitated head of the orc. Sword still jammed into his neck, carving a bit of the ear off. Love it. Absolutely love it. The silenced old Uzi? What even is that weapon? You know what? I've never even thought about that. It's got to be something specific. Like, what does his rules say? I'll have to have a look at that after this. But yeah, I love him. How could you not? How could you not? Look at it. Absolutely solid model. It's so good. Oh, and there's a bit of a there's a bit of a contrast. Again, the combination of an older painting style and a much older photograph is not doing him any favours. But I think overall, not too bad. Not too bad. The difference in basing, by the way, makes it. I mean, there's such a vast difference in basing. So you've got like a bit of granite. That's it. On both Creed and Colour Sergeant Kell. And then you look at like the Ogryns and just the addition of a couple of stones and some tufts. It makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. That's before you even get into things like the more kind of like the more sculpted bases on like Sly Marbo and stuff. Oh, I wondered where this lad had got to. So this is the Lord Commissar, and I quite like him. I think he looks okay. The one thing that gets me with this guy is he's got something of a paunch on him. I don't know whether it's just the breastplate, but there's a bit of gut going on there, which I suppose, in fairness, you know, there's nothing to say that you can't have a bit of a luxury lifestyle if you're a Lord Commissar, but it's always stuck out to me as being a bit weird from one angle. That one specifically. From the front, it's kind of heroic. Well, I say heroic. He's probably shooting one of his own men in the head, so whether that's heroic or not is entirely down to personal interpretation. But like from the front, imposing. You know, you've got the breastplate there that's been painted really nicely. So you've got all these little bits of carving and engraving on it. You've got medals. You've got the Commissar hat, but with the kind of laurel wreath situation going on. Big old cloak with fur at the top. The shoulders are really nice as well. And then you turn him round, and he just has a little bit of a squat and a gut going on, and it's just such a contrast. May well have been intentional, to be fair. But overall, I think that's a decent model. It's got a lot of personality, conveys a lot of authority, as it should, being a Commissar. Yeah, overall pretty decent. Now we're getting near the end now. We've got Iron Hand Straken. What an absolute beast. It's such a good model. I really like it. Again, it could do with being... There's a nice amount of detail. The metal arm and musculature for some reason. I like the fact that it's carved to be like more human. It does make him like an absolute psychopath though. Looks like a complete nutter. I don't know what it is about him. just looks absurdly like aggressive. But he's so good. So good. Big old skull hanging from the belt there. Really nice touch. Yeah, I really like that model. Really like it. Now this is the Imperial Guard Primaris Psyker. No relation to Primaris Marines, obviously. Just same word. And I actually really like this. I think this is a great model. It is an older one. I believe it's metal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, yep, one finely detailed metal Primaris Psyker. But there's a really nice amount of detail. Good stern expression. The staff is really cool as well. I really like the kind of oversized greatcoat. That works really nicely. The piping going around to the psychic hood is really nice. Overall, it's just a really good model. And it's aged really well as well. It doesn't look I think that looks, it doesn't look old. Unfortunately, this lad, the Commissar with Power Fist, does look a bit old. It does look a little bit lacking. It's a cool Power Fist. I will say it's a cool Power Fist, but it feels like the skulls on it particularly are a little doughy, as is the Aquila there as well. Perhaps a little bit ambitious on that one, which is a shame. I really like the cabling. That's a really nice touch. And overall, it's a cool idea. Like reading from the book and holding the Power Fist up is cool, but I don't know. It's just not aged as well as a lot of the other stuff. Now, the sanctioned Psykers would probably be a bit better if they didn't all effectively have the same pose. They're all doing the lean forward on the staff. The staff is pretty much at the same angle for every single model, and two of the sculpts are pretty much identical, with a different head and a different arm outstretched. But like the cloak and the belt are the same and wrapped around the staff in the same way. They're alright, I guess, but they're a bit uninspired, and they definitely just look very samey. And given there's only 3 of them, a little bit of variety might have been nice. Just a slightly different lean on the staff. Or maybe not even leaning on the staff, that would also be good. Something like that, anyway. Finally, we have the man himself, the absolute legend that is Gunnery Sergeant Harker. And if you don't like this model, then what's wrong with you? Look at him. Look at him. That is a bloke holding a heavy bolter. Just holding it. Just holding a heavy bolter. What an absolute legend. Like, he doesn't have any support for it. He's not augmented in any way. It's not like he's got cybernetic bits. He's not a space marine. He's just an absolute unit who can hold and fire a heavy bolter just as a human. Just a human, well, a Catachan, which I suppose actually is significantly harder than a human, but still, hero. Absolute hero. Legend. Legend. I absolutely love this model, and I always will. It's just solid. It's so absurd. Love it. Anyway, that is it. That is the end of the Astra Militarum range review. We got there in the end. Hopefully this one worked. If it didn't, then you will never hear this, and so it won't matter. Which fills me with a sense of futility and despair at the end of the video, but it's fine. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know which of those kits you like the most in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you would like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.